Good morning and welcome back to Reading Wikis for You. And today we're going to be reading about Helmuth Günther, a German youth executed at age 17 for his opposition to the Nazi regime. So, with that out of the way, don't forget, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you'd like to hear about next. Helmuth Günther Guddat Hübener was a German youth who was executed at age 17 by beheading for his opposition to the Nazi regime. He was the youngest person of the German resistance to Nazism to be sentenced to death by the Sondergericht, People's Court, and executed. Helmuth Günther, born in Hamburg on 8 January 1925, came from an apolitical religious family in Hamburg, Germany. He belonged to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as did his mother and grandparents. His adoptive father, Hugo, a Nazi sympathizer, gave him the name Hübner. Since early childhood, Hübner had been a member of the Boy Scouts, an organization strongly supported at the time by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But in 1935, the National Socialists banned scouting from Germany. He then joined the Hitler Youth as required by the government, but quit after Kristallnacht in 1938, when the Nazis, including the Hitler Youth, destroyed Jewish businesses and homes. When one of the leaders in his local congregation undertook to ban Jews from attending its religious services, Hübner found himself at odds with the new policy, but continued to attend services with like-minded friends as the Latter-day Saints locally debated the issue. His friend and fellow resistance fighter Rudolf Rudi Vöbe later reported that of the 2,000 Latter-day Saints in the Hamburg area, only 7 were pro-Nazi, but 5 of them happened to be in his and Hübner's St. Georg branch, thus stirring controversy with the majority who were non- or anti-Nazis. After Hübner finished middle school in 1941, he began an apprenticeship in administration at the Hamburg Social Authority. He met other apprentices there, one of whom, Gerhard Duver, he would later recruit into his resistance movement. At a bathhouse, he met new friends, one of whom had a communist family background, and as a result, he began listening to enemy radio broadcasts. Listening to foreign media was, at the time, strictly forbidden in Nazi Germany, being considered a form of treason. In the summer of that same year, Hübner discovered his older half-brother Gerhard's shortwave radio in a hallway closet. It had been purchased by Gerhard earlier that year in France. Helmuth began listening to the BBC on his own, and he used what he heard to compose various anti-National Socialist texts and anti-war leaflets, of which he also made many copies. The leaflets were designed to bring people's attention how skewed the official reports about World War II from Berlin were, as well as to point out Adolf Hitler's, Joseph Goebbels, and other leading Nazis' criminal behavior. Other themes covered by Hübner's writing were the war's futility and Germany's looming defeat. He also mentioned the mistreatment sometimes meted out in the Hitler Youth. In one of his pamphlets, for example, he wrote, quote, "German boys, do you know the country without freedom, the country of terror and tyranny? Yes, you know it well, but are afraid to talk about it. They have intimidated you to such an extent that you don't dare talk for fear of reprisals. Yes, you are right. It is Germany, Hitler Germany. Through their unscrupulous terror tactics against young and old, men and women, they have succeeded in making you spineless puppets to do their bidding, unquote. Helmuth Günther. In late 1941, his listening involved 3 friends, Karl Heinz Schnibb and Rudi Vöbe, both of whom were Latter-day Saints, and later Gerhard Duver. Hübner had them help him distribute about 39 different pamphlets, all containing typewritten material from the British broadcasts. They distributed them throughout Hamburg using such methods as surreptitiously pinning them on bulletin boards, inserting them into letterboxes, and stuffing them in coat pockets. Arrest and execution. On 5 February 1942, Hübner was arrested by the Gestapo at his workplace, the Hamburg Social Authority in Bieberhaus in Hamburg. While trying to translate the pamphlets into French and have them distributed among prisoners of war, he had been noticed by co-worker and Nazi Party member Heinrich Mohn, who denounced him. On 11 August 1942, age 17, Hübner was tried as an adult by the Special People's Court in Berlin, which had jurisdiction over matters of treason. Hübner was sentenced to death by Judge Karl Engert. After the sentence was read, Hübner faced the judges and said, "Now I must die, even though I have committed no crime. So now it's my turn, but your turn will come." He hoped his confrontational tactics would focus the judge's wrath on him and spare his companions. As stated in the proclamation, Hübner was found guilty of conspiracy to commit high treason and treasonous furthering of the enemy's cause. He was sentenced not only to death, but also permanent loss of his civil rights, which meant the prison guards were allowed to torture and abuse him, and he was not allowed bedding or blankets in his cold cell. It was highly unusual for the Nazis to try an underage defendant, much less sentence him to death, but the court stated that Hübner had shown more than average intelligence for a boy his age. This, along with his general and political knowledge and his behavior before the court, made Hübner, in the court's eyes, a boy with far more developed mind than was usually to be found in someone of his age. For this reason, the court stated, Hübner was to be punished as an adult. Hübner's lawyers, his mother, and the Berlin Gestapo appealed for clemency in his case, hoping to have his sentence commuted to life imprisonment. In their eyes, the fact that Hübner had confessed fully and shown himself to be still morally uncorrupted were points in his favor. The Reich youth leadership disagreed, however, and stated that the danger posed by Hübner's activities to the German people's war effort made the death penalty necessary. On 27 October, the Nazi Ministry of Justice upheld the Special People's Court verdict. Hübner was only told of the ministry's decision at 1:05 p.m. on the scheduled day of execution. On 27 October, at 8:13 p.m., he was beheaded by guillotine in the execution room at Plötzensee prison in Berlin. His two friends, Schnib and Vob, who had also been arrested, were given prison sentences of 5 and 10 years respectively. In 1937, the president of the LDS Church, Heber J. Grant, had visited Germany and urged the members to build up the church in their home country rather than emigrate to Utah and to follow the law of the land. Consequently, some church members saw Hübner as a troublemaker who made things difficult for other Latter-day Saints in Germany. This recommendation did not change after Kristallnacht, which occurred the year following Grant's visit, after which he evacuated all non-German Latter-day Saint missionaries. The local Latter-day Saint branch president, Arthur Zander, 1907 to 1989, was a supporter of the Nazi Party and had affixed a notice to the meeting house entrance stating, "Jews not welcome." 10 days after the arrest of Hübner, on 15 February 1942, Zander claimed to have excommunicated the young man. The excommunication was not valid, as it lacked the necessary authorization of the church's district president, Otto Berndt, who later claimed he would never have signed it. The day of his execution, Hübner wrote in a letter to a fellow branch member, "I know that God lives, and he will be the just judge in this matter. I look forward to seeing you in a better world." This is thought to be the only surviving letter by Hübner. In 1946, 4 years later, and after the war, Hübner's excommunication was declared null and void by the church's first presidency and the church's new German mission president, Max Zimmer, who said the excommunication was not carried out properly. He was also posthumously ordained an elder, with full church temple blessings restored in 1948 to clarify that his membership in the church was never in doubt. Legacy. A youth center and school in Hamburg are named after Hübner, as it is a pathway between Griefswalderstrasse and Kirchenweg in St. Georg. At the former Plötzensee prison in Berlin, an exhibit about Hübner's resistance, trial, and execution was located in the former guillotine chamber. It has since been changed to highlight other victims. Floral tributes are often placed in memory of Hübner and others put to death by the Nazis there. Hübner also has a Stolperstein at Sachsenstrasse 42 in Hamburg-Hammerbrook. On 8 January 1985, 60 years after Hübner's birth, ceremonies in his memory were held in Hamburg by city officials. His fellow resistors, Schnib and Vob, both of whom had emigrated to the U.S. after the war, returned to Hamburg for the commemoration, where they were honored guests and speakers. Depiction in books, drama, and film. Hübner's story has been the subject of various literary, dramatic, and cinematic works. In 1970, German author Günter Grass published the book Local Anesthetic about the Hübner Group. In 1979, Thomas F. Rogers, a university teacher at Brigham Young University, wrote a play titled Hübner, which has had several runs in various venues. Hübner's two co-accused friends, Karl-Heinz Schnib and Rudi Vob, attended some of the performances, albeit in different circumstances. Vob died of cancer in 1992. Schnib died in 2010. In February 2014, Hübner made its high school premiere in St. George, Utah. In 1995, the first-hand account, When Truth Was Treason, was published, narrated by Karl-Heinz Schnibb and written by Blair R. Holmes, a professional historian, and Alan F. Keel, a German language specialist. A newer edition was published in 2003. The book, Hübner vs. Hitler, by Richard Lloyd, includes interviews with all then-living friends and close relatives of Hübner, and utilizes primary investigative documents from the Nazi era. Rudolf Gustav Vöbe, Hübner's other co-resistance fighter, wrote the book Before the Blood Tribunal. Published in 1989, the book provides a personal account of his own trial before the Special People's Court of Nazi Germany, where he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for his participation in anti-Nazi resistance. Rudy, as he was known, also describes events leading up to the trials of the 3 German youths and his own experience as a prisoner. This book was later republished as 3 Against Hitler. The 2008 juvenile novel, The Boy Who Dared, by Susan Campbell Bartoletti, while fictional, is based on Hübner's life. Bartoletti's earlier Newbery Honor book, Hitler Youth, Growing Up in Hitler's Shadow, also covers Hübner's story. Hübner's story was documented in the 2003 documentary Truth and Conviction, written and directed by Rick McFarland and Matt Whitaker. The story was also depicted in The Resistance Movement, an independent 2012 film. In 2020, an exhibition about Helmuth Hübner, named You May Not Know Him, But, by German artist Cordula Ditz, took place in Kunsthalle, Hamburg. A narrative film adaptation of Hübner's story titled Truth and Treason will be released on 17 October 2025 by Angel in the U.S. The film is produced by Kaleidoscope Pictures. All right, so reason I'm doing this one is because the film comes out tomorrow and I'm actually going to be going to see it. So I hope you learned something interesting. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed for new videos. And as always, drop a comment down below and let us know what you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching.